Princess Lyra of the Kailari Empire stood alone on the high balcony of the Imperial Spire, her silver eyes fixed on the training grounds far below. The twin suns of Kalos beat down on the polished black stone, making the air shimmer like liquid glass. Around her, the palace hummed with quiet order. Servants moved like shadows. Guards stood motionless as statues, and the soft chime of data crystals echoed from distant halls. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. Everything was boring. Except for one thing. Down in the courtyard, a single figure moved with a rhythm that did not match the sharp, rigid drills of the Kailari warriors. She was small, slender, and clearly not of their kind. Her skin was warm brown. Her hair cut short and practical. Her uniform plain compared to the gleaming armor of the others. She was human. Her name was Lisa. Lisa had been assigned to the palace 6 months ago as part of the human delegation, a token gesture after Earth's surrender. Most humans in the Empire were scholars or translators, kept in quiet quarters and rarely seen. But Lisa was different. She was a soldier. Not a fighter in the Kailari sense. She carried no plasma blade, wore no battle harness, but she stood guard with a stillness that spoke of deep discipline. Hour after hour, day after day, she held her post without complaint, even under the harshest heat of the twin suns. Lyra had noticed her by accident. One morning, while reviewing star charts in the East Wing, she'd glanced out the window and seen Lisa standing at attention near the garden gate. Something about the way the human held herself, not stiff, not proud, but calm, had caught her attention. Since then, Lyra found herself watching more often, not because she was supposed to, not because it mattered, just because. The Kailari saw humans as weak, emotional, chaotic. Their planet had been spared total destruction only because their leaders had surrendered before the final orbital strike. In return, Earth became a protected vassal world, and a handful of its people were brought to Kalos as living symbols of peace. Most Kailari treated them with polite indifference, some with open scorn. But Lyra could not stop wondering. Why did Lisa endure it? Why did she stand so still, so quiet, when she could have asked for easier duty? Why did she never look angry or ashamed? The Kailari valued strength above all. Strength of body, strength of will, strength of logic. Humans, they said, had none of these. Yet Lisa seemed to have something else, something Lyra could not name. One evening, after the palace lights dimmed to a soft blue glow, Lyra made a decision. She sent a quiet summons through the internal comm system. Bring guard Lisa to the Royal Archives, no escort, no delay. The archives were rarely used. They held the oldest records of the Empire, crystalline rods that stored the voices of long-dead emperors, star maps from forgotten conquests, and the laws that had shaped Kailari society for 10,000 years. It was a place of silence and memory. Lisa arrived exactly on time. She stepped through the arched doorway with her hands clasped behind her back, posture straight, eyes lowered as protocol demanded. "You may look at me," Lyra said, her voice softer than she intended. Lisa raised her gaze. Her eyes were brown, warm like the soil of her homeworld, and steady. There was no fear in them. No pleading, just quiet awareness. "Why do you serve here, human, when your kind could have refused?" Lyra asked, stepping closer. "You were not forced. Earth was spared. You could have stayed home." Lisa did not flinch, because someone had to stand for Earth. Not as a prisoner, not as a beggar, but as a witness. "We lost the war, but we did not lose our dignity." Lyra tilted her head. "Dignity is a luxury for the strong." "Maybe," Lisa replied, "but even the weak can choose how they fall." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lyra felt something stir inside her, a question she had never dared to ask. Was strength only about power? About control? Or could it also be about choice? About holding on to who you are even when the universe tries to erase you? Over the next few days, Lyra found reasons to be near Lisa. She walked the West Corridor during Lisa's midday shift. She requested her presence during minor diplomatic briefings, though humans had no official role. Once she even asked Lisa to demonstrate human combat forms in the training hall. Lisa agreed without hesitation. In the empty hall under the glow of overhead lights, she moved like water. She showed Aikido, a martial art based not on striking but on balance, timing, and redirection. When a practice drone lunged at her with mechanical force, Lisa did not meet it with force. She turned, stepped aside, and guided the drone's momentum until it stumbled and shut down. "You do not seek to destroy your opponent," Lyra observed, arms crossed. "No," Lisa said, breathing lightly. "I seek to understand them, To move with them, not against them. Lyra stared. That made no sense in Kalari logic. In their way, conflict was about dominance. You either won or you were erased. There was no middle ground. But Lisa's way, it was like dancing with danger instead of fighting it. That night, Lyra did something forbidden. She accessed the restricted files on Earth. Not the official reports filled with cold data, but the raw cultural archives. Music, poetry, personal logs, children's drawings. She listened to a human lullaby sung in a language she did not understand, yet it made her chest feel tight. She watched a video of a human city at night, lights twinkling like fallen stars, people laughing in crowded streets. It was messy. It was loud. It was alive. And then she saw a recording of a human funeral, people crying, holding each other, placing flowers on a grave. They mourned openly. They did not hide their grief behind masks of control, and yet they kept going. They built. They loved. They hoped. Lyra sat in the dark for a long time. The next morning, news spread through the palace like fire. A powerful faction of nobles, led by General Voran, had declared that Earth's continued existence was a threat to imperial purity. They claimed humans were too emotional, too unstable, too unpredictable. They demanded the planet's sterilization, a clean, final end. The Emperor, old and tired, had not yet responded. The council was divided. Lyra knew what this meant. If nothing changed, Earth would be erased. Lisa would die. And with her, that strange, quiet strength Lyra had begun to admire. That evening, Lyra called Lisa to her private chamber. No guards, no recorders, just the two of them beneath the soft glow of ceiling crystals. They plan to destroy your world, Lyra said. Lisa's face did not change, but her fingers twitched once before stilling. I know, you do not beg for mercy. Mercy is not mine to ask, Lisa said, but if there is a way to stop this, I will take it. There is a way, Lyra said, stepping closer. The imperial succession law allows any royal to challenge a decree through a legacy trial. If I win, Earth lives. If I lose my title and am exiled forever. What is the trial? Lisa asked. A test of values. I must prove that my way, our way, is stronger than theirs. And to do that, I need you. Lisa met her eyes. What do you need me to do? Stand with me, Lyra said. Not as a guard, not as a symbol, but as yourself, as a human. Show them what they cannot see. Lisa was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. I will. Outside, the twin suns set, painting the sky in colors no Kalari artist had ever tried to capture. And in that quiet room, two women from different worlds made a choice that would change everything. The day of the legacy trial arrived under a sky heavy with storm clouds. The grand amphitheater of the imperial spire stood open to the heavens. Its stone tiers filled with Kalari nobles, warriors, and high officials. Their silver eyes gleamed with cold curiosity. Most had come not to judge, but to witness the fall of Princess Lyra, a royal who had dared to question the Empire's oldest belief, that strength meant control, and mercy meant weakness. At the center of the arena stood General Voran, tall and armored in black ceramite, his voice sharp as a blade. Beside him, Lyra wore no armor, only the simple white robes of a truth-seeker, and at her side stood Lisa, still in her human guard uniform, hands clasped behind her back, calm as ever. The Emperor sat on his high throne, his face unreadable. The trial had been granted, but his silence spoke volumes. If Lyra failed, not only would Earth be destroyed, she would be cast out, stripped of name and honor. Vorden stepped forward first. He did not bow. Princess Lyra would have us believe that compassion makes us strong, he said, his voice echoing through the amphitheater. But compassion is the crack through which chaos enters. Look at Earth, divided by 1,000 beliefs, ruled by fleeting emotions, unable to govern even themselves. They are a disease in the body of the Empire. To spare them is to invite decay. Murmurs rose from the crowd. Many nodded in agreement. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. Then let us test that belief. Not with weapons, but with truth. I call Lisa of Earth to speak for her world. Vorden sneered. A human? She cannot even understand our language fully. Her mind is clouded by sentiment. I understand enough, Lisa said, her voice calm despite the translator bead glowing softly at her throat. You call us weak because we feel. But feeling is not weakness. It is the reason we build hospitals, write songs, plant gardens in the ruins of war. Your empire conquers stars, but what do you create? Only more conquest, the crowd stirred. No human had ever spoken so boldly in the imperial court. Vordan's eyes narrowed. Words are wind. They change nothing. Then test them, Lisa said. Challenge me not with steel but with a question. Ask me something only a true representative of Earth could answer. A hush fell over the amphitheater. Even the wind seemed to pause. Vordan hesitated. He had expected fear, not courage. But he could not back down now. Fine, he said. Answer this. Why should we spare a species that cannot even govern itself? Your history is a cycle of war, greed and self-destruction. You burn your own forests, poison your own seas, and still you fight each other over lines drawn in sand. Why should the Empire risk its order for such chaos? Lisa did not look away. Because we are learning, she said. Every war we fight teaches us the cost of hatred. Every mistake we make becomes a lesson. You have lived in order so long you have forgotten how to grow. We grow through pain, through love, through failure, and that is why, even now, we hope. She turned to face the crowd. When your children are born, do you not feel joy? When your warriors fall, do you not mourn? You hide it, yes, because your culture demands it, but it is there. And that is what makes you like us. You just forgot how to say it. Lyra watched the faces in the crowd. Some were angry, some confused, but a few, just a few, looked thoughtful. One elder lowered her gaze. A young officer shifted his weight, his expression uncertain. Vordan stepped forward again, his voice rising. Hope is not strategy. Emotion is not law. The Empire survives because it is strong, not because it dreams. Strength without purpose is just noise, Lisa replied. You can destroy a world in a day, but it takes generations to heal one. Earth is not perfect, but we try. Every day we try. And that trying, that is our legacy. Lyra stepped beside her. The human legacy is not in their weapons or their ships. It is in their refusal to stop trying, to stop caring. That is the strength I choose to follow. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. All sound ceased. Even the distant hum of the city fell silent. The trial is concluded, he said, his voice low but firm. Earth shall remain under imperial protection, and Princess Lyra shall be named heir to the throne. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Varan's face darkened, but he bowed stiffly, bound by ancient law. The decision could not be undone. Cheers did not rise. There was no celebration, only a deep, uneasy silence as the nobles filed out, their minds churning with questions they had never dared to ask. Later that night, Lyra and Lisa stood again on the observation deck. The storm clouds gone, the twin moons casting silver light over the city. You saved my world, Lisa said softly. No, Lyra replied. You reminded me that saving is better than conquering. In the weeks that followed, small changes began to appear. Human music played in the palace gardens. Children's drawings from Earth were displayed in the Hall of Records. A human chef was invited to prepare a meal for the royal council. Simple food, full of color and spice, unlike the bland nutrient cubes most Kaelari ate. Lisa was no longer just a guard. She became an advisor, a bridge between two worlds. She taught Kaelari children how to draw with crayons, how to laugh without shame, how to say I'm sorry without losing honor. And Lyra, now heir to the Empire, began to speak of a new path, not of domination but of understanding, not of purity but of diversity. It was slow, it was hard. Many resisted, but the seed had been planted. Years later, when Lyra sat on the imperial throne, she kept one thing on her desk, a small, worn photograph of Earth, given to her by Lisa on the day the trial ended. It showed a field of wildflowers under a blue sky, simple and fragile and full of life. And whenever doubt crept in, Lyra would look at it and remember that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths, that strength is not always loud, and that the future is not built by those who conquer, but by those who care enough to try. 10 years after the Void Zone incident, the Empire was no longer just Kaelari. It was something new, something shared. Human and Kaelari children attended the same schools, learning both logic matrices and Earth poetry. Joint ships patrolled the borders, their crews speaking a mix of languages and sharing meals that blended spiced root cakes with Earth bread. The old fear had not vanished, but it had been outgrown, like a shell left behind by a creature that learned to fly. Lyra, now older, her silver hair streaked with strands of soft white, ruled not from a throne of stone but from a council chamber where every voice mattered. Lisa sat beside her, not as a guard, not even as an ambassador, but as a friend. They had walked through fire together and trust had grown deep roots. But peace, even when woven tight, can still be tested. One quiet morning, a message arrived from Earth itself, not from its government, but from a small village near the Pacific coast. It was a simple request, sent through old channels Lisa had helped build. "Our sea is sick," the message read. "The fish die. The water burns. We cannot fix it alone. Please, send help." Lyra read the words twice. Earth had not asked for aid in years. Pride, resilience, and a hard-won sense of independence kept them from reaching out. If they were asking now, it was dire. She called an emergency meeting. Some council members frowned. "Earth chose its path," said one elder. "They must bear its weight." "We are one empire now," Lyra replied. "Not two worlds pretending to share a sky." Lisa stood. "I will go. Not as a representative. As someone who remembers that shore. I played there as a child." Lyra nodded. But this time, she would not let Lisa go alone. "I will go with you." The journey took 3 days aboard the Unity, a ship built by both species. Its hull bore the Kalari star and the human circle of Earth side by side. When they arrived, the sight shocked even Lyra. The ocean, once blue and alive, shimmered with a sickly green film. Dead fish lined the beaches. The air smelled sour. Villagers gathered as the shuttle landed. They were thin, tired, but their eyes held no despair. Only quiet hope. An old woman stepped forward. "You came," she said to Lisa, her voice rough but warm. "I told you I would," Lisa replied, embracing her. This was her aunt, the last of her family still living in the village. Scientists from both worlds worked together. The cause was clear. A deep-sea mining operation run by a rogue Kalari corporation had ruptured a toxic deposit. The company had hidden the spill, blaming it on natural decay. They thought no one would care about a quiet shore on a once-conquered world. Lyra's anger burned cold. This was not just neglect. It was betrayal of everything they had built. She ordered the company shut down, its leaders arrested. But she knew punishment would not heal the sea. So she did something no empress had ever done. She rolled up her sleeves and joined the cleanup. Day after day, she worked beside humans and Kalari alike, filtering water, planting seagrass, carrying supplies. Her hands blistered. Her robe stained with salt and mud. The villagers watched in awe. The empress of 1,000 worlds kneeling in the sand, planting hope one seed at a time. Lisa worked beside her, silent most days, but her presence was steady. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and pink, she spoke. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did," Lyra said. "This is not just your home. It is part of ours now." Back on Kylos, news of the Empress working on a human beach spread fast. Some called it undignified. Others called it brave. But most saw it for what it was. Proof that words like together and we were not just ideas. They were actions. When the sea began to clear, when the first healthy fish returned, the village held a small ceremony. Not grand, not formal. Just people gathered on the shore, sharing food, music, and stories. The old woman handed Lyra a small shell, smooth and white. "This is from before the sickness," she said. "Keep it, so you never forget that healing starts with showing up." Lyra placed it in her pocket, next to the old photograph of wildflowers. Months later, back in the capital, Lyra announced a new law, the Planetary Care Covenant. Every world in the Empire, no matter its origin, would have equal protection of its land, water, and air. Corporations would be held accountable, and every citizen, human or Kalari, could report harm without fear. It was not perfect. Change never is, but it was real. One night, long after the stars had risen, Lyra found Lisa on the palace balcony, looking up at the sky. "Do you ever miss it?" Lyra asked. "Earth, I mean. Every day," Lisa said. "But I don't need to go back to feel at home. Home is where people choose each other again and again." Lyra smiled. "Then we are home." Below them, the city hummed, not with the cold order of the past, but with the warm chaos of 1,000 lives learning to live as one. Music drifted from a plaza, kinds of flutes and human guitars playing the same tune. Children laughed in a mix of tongues. And high above, the Unity ship sailed between worlds, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. The Empire had not become human, nor had humans become Kalari. But in the space between, something beautiful had grown. Fragile, yes, but strong because it was chosen, not forced. And in that choice, they found a future worth protecting. 5 years had passed since the legacy trial, and the Empire was changing, not with a roar but with a whisper. The twin suns of Kalos still rose and set over the Imperial spire, but the streets below now held more than just Kailari voices. Human traders sold woven scarves in the market square. Kailari children played games that mixed their own logic puzzles with human stories of heroes who saved instead of slew. And in the palace gardens, a new tree grew, one brought from Earth, its leaves green and soft, swaying gently in the warm wind. Lyra ruled now as Empress, not by force, but by choice. Her council still held traditionalists like Varan, though his power had faded with time. He watched the changes with narrowed eyes, silent but waiting. He believed the Empire was softening, that mercy would one day become its undoing. But Lyra knew better. She had seen what humans built from rubble. She had seen Lisa stand alone in a sea of doubt and speak truth without fear. That was not weakness. That was a different kind of strength. Lisa no longer wore a guard's uniform. She served as the first human ambassador to the Kailari throne. Though she preferred to walk the halls without title or escort, she spent her days teaching, listening, and sometimes just sitting with Lyra in quiet moments, sharing stories of Earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of snow falling on quiet towns, of people who sang when they were happy and held each other when they were not. But peace, even hard-won peace, is never safe. One morning, a distress signal came from the Outer Rim. A Kailari colony ship, the Starward, had gone silent near the border of the Void Zone, a region long thought empty. When scouts returned, they brought grim news. The ship was destroyed, not by accident, not by natural forces, by weapons unlike any in the Empire's records. Worse, carved into the hull of the wreckage were symbols, human symbols. Crude but unmistakable, a peace dove, a child's drawing of a house. Words in Old Earth script, "We tried." Panic spread through the court. Varan stood before the council, his voice sharp with triumph. "This is what your mercy has brought us, Empress. Humans do not just bring chaos, they bring betrayal. They have armed rebels in the Outer Rim. They plan to tear the Empire apart from within." Lyra's heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. "We do not know who did this. To blame all humans for one act is the same fear that once called us to destroy Earth. Fear keeps us alive," Varan shot back. "And now, it demands action." That night, Lyra found Lisa in the Earth Garden, kneeling beside the young tree, her hands in the soil. "They think humans did this," Lyra said softly. Lisa did not look up. "I know. Do you believe it?" Lisa finally met her eyes. "No, but someone wants us to believe it." They both knew what that meant. Someone was trying to break the fragile bond between their peoples, someone who feared change more than war. "We have to go," Lisa said. "Go where?" "To the Void Zone. To the wreckage. If we don't find the truth, the Council will vote to revoke Earth's protection." Maybe worse, Lyra hesitated. Leaving the capital during a crisis was risky, but staying meant letting fear decide the future. 2 days later, they boarded a small scout vessel crewed only by loyal officers who believed in the new path. The journey took 6 cycles. The Void Zone was cold and empty, stars sparse, silence thick. When they reached the remains of the Starward, it floated like a ghost in the dark. They suited up and stepped onto the broken hull. Inside, the ship was a tomb. But in the command chamber, they found something strange. The human symbols were there, but beneath them, hidden under a panel, was a Kailari data chip. Encrypted. Military grade. Back on the ship, Lisa worked with the tech team. The encryption was old, pre-trial era. It matched codes used by hardline factions within the Imperial fleet. Not humans. Kailari. The message inside was short. Frame the humans. Break the alliance. Restore purity. Vorden's name was not mentioned, but his hand was clear in every line. Lyra felt sick, not just at the betrayal, but at how easily it could have worked. One act of violence, dressed in human symbols, and years of trust could vanish in a day. They returned to Kalos faster than they left. This time, Lyra did not ask for a hearing. She called an emergency session of the full council and broadcast it to every city, every ship, every home in the Empire. She stood before them, not in royal robes, but in the simple white of a truth seeker, just as she had during the trial. Beside her, Lisa held the data chip. "Someone tried to make us enemies again," Lyra said, her voice steady. "They used our past fears against us. They thought we would not look deeper. They thought we would choose anger over truth." She played the message. Silence filled the chamber. Then she turned to Voran, who stood pale and still. "Was this your doing?" He did not answer, but his silence was answer enough. The council erupted. Some called for his arrest. Others demanded reform. But Lyra raised her hand. "Punishment is easy," she said, "but healing is harder. We will not become what we fought against. Voran will be stripped of rank and sent to serve in the outer colonies, not as a prisoner but as a reminder that even those who fall can choose to rise." Then she looked at Lisa.
"And Earth will not just be protected.
"It will be honored. From this day, humans may serve in any role in the Empire, scholar, pilot, builder, leader. Not because they asked, but because they earned it." Cheers rose, not just from the few humans present, but from Kalari voices too. Young voices, hopeful voices. That evening, Lyra and Lisa stood once more on the observation deck. The earth tree behind them had grown taller, its branches reaching toward the stars. "Do you think it will last?" Lisa asked. "Nothing lasts forever," Lyra said. "But if we keep choosing truth over fear, maybe it can last long enough to matter." Below them in the city, lights glowed, some silver, some warm yellow. Two colors side by side, not the same, but together. The years moved like rivers, steady, deep, and full of change. Lyra's hair had turned fully silver now, and lines of time traced her eyes, but her voice still carried the same quiet strength that had once defied an empire. Lisa, too, bore the marks of age. Her steps slower, her hands rough from years of work in gardens, classrooms, and council halls, yet neither had stepped back. They stood side by side, not as ruler and subject, but as two souls who had helped rewrite the story of a galaxy. But even the strongest piece faces its final test. It began with a signal, not from the void zone, not from a colony, but from deep space beyond the known rim. A ship appeared on long-range scans. Not Kalari, not human. Something else. It drifted silent and dark, its hull scarred by time and unknown weapons. When hailed, it sent no reply, only a single repeating pulse in a pattern no one recognized. Curiosity turned to caution, then to fear. Scouts approached. The ship was ancient, built of metals not found in any known system. Inside they found no crew. Only logs, etched in light, not sound, showing a civilization that had once thrived, then vanished. The last entry showed a warning. "Beware the silence that follows unity." Lyra studied the logs for days. The lost people had been like them, many species once at war who had chosen peace. They had built a great alliance. And then, without war, without plague, without reason, they disappeared. Every world empty, every city still. "They did everything right," Lisa said quietly, standing beside her in the archive chamber. "And still they were erased." "Maybe unity wasn't enough," Lyra murmured. "Maybe they forgot to stay awake." The discovery shook the Empire. Old fears returned. Some said the silence was a curse, that peace made species weak, easy to wipe out. Others whispered that humans were the cause, that their soft ways had invited this unknown end. Vordan, now old and living in quiet exile, sent a single message to Lyra. "You built a dream. But dreams do not fight." For the first time in years, doubt crept into Lyra's heart. Had they been naive? Had they traded survival for hope? Then Lisa did something unexpected. She called for a gathering, not of leaders, but of ordinary people. Farmers, teachers, pilots, healers, Cagliari and human, young and old. They met in the great plaza beneath the twin moons. "We are afraid," Lisa said, her voice carrying without amplification. "And that is okay. Fear means we care, but we must not let it choose for us." She told them about Earth's darkest days, wars that nearly ended everything, fires that burned cities, floods that swallowed coasts. "We survived not because we were strong alone," she said, "but because someone always reached out a hand, even when it hurt, even when it seemed foolish." A young Kalari girl raised her hand. "What if the silence comes for us?" "Then we will not be silent," Lyra said, stepping forward. "We will sing, we will build. We will teach our children to question, to care, to fight, not with weapons, but with truth." The crowd did not cheer. They stood in silence. But it was a different silence now, not empty, but full of thought, of choice. In the weeks that followed, the Empire did not arm itself for war. Instead, it reached out. Scientists from both species worked to decode the lost logs. Artists painted murals of the vanished people. honoring them not as a warning but as ancestors of a shared path. Schools added lessons on vigilance, not of borders but of spirit. And then something strange happened. From a remote human outpost near Neptune, a new signal came. Weak but clear. It was a child's voice singing an old Earth lullaby, recorded decades ago drifting into deep space. The lost ship's logs responded, not with words but with light, a soft pulse that matched the song's rhythm. The silence was not death. It was waiting. The lost civilization had not been destroyed. They had chosen to sleep, preserving themselves in stasis after a great cosmic storm passed. Their warning was not about unity, but about forgetting to listen. Lyra and Lisa led a small team to the source. Deep in a hidden nebula, they found a fleet of sleeping ships, thousands of them holding millions of lives. The system needed a key, a song, a memory, a sign that the galaxy still cared. Lisa played the lullaby again. This time, live, one by one. The ships awoke. When the first of the lost ones stepped onto the Unity's deck, they were tall, gentle-eyed, and spoke in tones like wind through trees. They had watched the Empire from afar. They had seen the trial, the cleanup of Earth's shore, the shared schools, the mixed crews. They had waited to see if kindness was real, or just a moment. You passed, their leader said, not by force but by faith. The return of the lost ones changed everything. They brought knowledge of ancient stars, of healing arts, of music that could mend broken minds. In return, they asked only one thing: to belong. Lyra welcomed them not as subjects but as equals. A new council formed, 3 voices now, not 2. And in the heart of the capital, a new garden grew with trees from Kalos, flowers from Earth, and vines from the lost world, all entwined. Years later, when Lyra could no longer walk the halls, and Lisa's voice grew soft, they sat together on the balcony one last time. The city below glowed with 3 colors of light: silver, gold, and blue. Did we do enough? Lisa asked. Lyra took her hand. We did what we could. And that was everything. They watched the stars, not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as guardians of a simple truth: that the universe is not won by the strongest, but held together by those who refuse to let go of each other. And in that holding they found forever.